Big break in TV. Let the prime time, bitch.
Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our review of Chucky Season 2, Episode 2. Alrighty, Luke, we are back here again, another week on the Primetime Terrors, talking Episode 2 of Chucky. How are we feeling about this?
Oh man, we are moving right along, I would say. Last week we talked about maybe it was a little bit slower than we anticipated. This one, I think we're starting to really get into form here, where it's kind of all the pieces are falling into place as to what we had seen in the trailer of what this season was going to look like. And I mean, we're here in the Catholic school. We have Devon Sawa back, which again we've talked about is absolutely great. Chucky's back up to his old ways here. So I think right now we're falling into line as to what this season 2 is going to end up really feeling like.
Yeah, they gave us a little bit of more information. Again, I was feeling a little bit of a slowness on this first half of this episode. Again, like I was thinking, am I being a little too harsh on it when I say that? But honestly, like the first maybe 15, 20 minutes of the show was, again, just more introduction. And I understand that we have to do this, but like, I feel like the first season just did everything so well, set the stage so quickly. And then we really just kind of got into that general mystery, which is a much simpler story. But I think really where my issues are kind of propping up was with a decision that was made at the end of season 1. Which I don't think I really discussed it in our season 1 review. That was more generalized, so I didn't get a chance to get into the details here, but I don't know if I'm crazy about, well, till the end of this episode, they kind of redeemed that a little bit, but I don't know if I'm super crazy about what they're doing with Nika and how they cut all of her appendages off and how that's working. Like, it's just, when we get back to that, I feel like the show loses a little bit of momentum, and I get that we're still kind of building into things, but I did catch myself kind of losing interest when we would flash back to those episodes or those sections of the episode.
Yeah, I was a little off put by that choice at the end of season 1 as well, and I think it's still one of those things where I'm getting used to it. I'm not in love with that aspect either. I think with the relationship that we are seeing more so toward the end of this episode, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. And I don't know where it's going to go. It was an odd choice to begin with, but I think they're maybe making progress toward a payoff there. It seems like they have a direction they're going to. Yeah, again, I find it a little unsettling and hard to get used to when they do cut back to that situation. But I think the Nika situation is weird, but they're kind of putting her in a position filled with other interesting characters. I mean, Jennifer Tilly, for me, always steals the show.
Mm-hmm.
She made me laugh out loud a few times during this episode. And then, we're getting introduced to, like we saw in the trailer, Glenn and Glenda. So it's kind of, while it's an odd situation, it's very bold in its storytelling, I would say.
Yeah, no, it is a bold choice. And I'm still willing to work with it. I think I got a little bit more on board once we saw into Nika's head at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And we saw how she was conversing with Chucky and how that was kind of playing out, where they're kind of on the same team now in a way. It's like, the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of deal.
Interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a little bit of that comes into the fact that it's like, it is so tough for me to really pull away from our central story with our characters, because I love the whole mindless revenge aspect that it seems like Chucky is going on with our main trio, and everything that's going on with that. It is very interesting. Again, a little slower than I guess I'd like for it to be going on right now. But we do have a lot of characters that we are still introducing. Devon Sawa was a high point for me. Just from the trailer, I knew that, him coming back for his third role in this series was, going to be interesting. And, he just changes up his mannerisms, changes up his performance very well. And, it's just one of those things. I'm like, he is an entertaining piece. And I'm curious to see how much further that story is going to go. And then I do like what they did with the Chucky version that shows up in this
Yes.
episode when they do capture him. I thought that was pretty interesting. That was different. Again, I just don't know if maybe if we would have spent a little more time with that and less time with some of it just felt like there were some sections of the show with the Nika stuff that kind of felt like meandering a little bit, especially with the introduction to that FBI agent or whatever he was, or detective, just for him to get killed right away was just kind of one of those things where I'm like, okay, so like we could have spent more time with them interrogating that Chucky instead of working on this if it just was a means to an end.
Yeah.
But it's just like those are minor gripes. I think like I'm trying to come at this with a little bit more of a critical eye, and I mean episode by episode is how we do the show. So there is a very good chance that episode 3 they could tie up some of this, and I'll be perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, and and I think we almost get two different tones here, especially with Chucky and our trio at the Catholic school. Seems a little more grounded in a sense, whereas versus like the Jennifer Tilly, Nika, Glenn, Glenda, all this stuff seems almost more of an awkward tone. I think they're kind of playing it almost as a juxtaposition a little bit to kind of jump from different tones within the same episode. It seems like, which I find pretty interesting. Yeah, like I just think that honestly, I think the introduction to the FBI agent was just kind of there for the punchline at the end and to kind of really drive home the kind of um, lunacy of Jennifer Tilly,
Very much,
Tiffany.
yeah.
And I thought the ending was a pretty fun exclamation point on that kind of episode as to what was going on with the whole Tiffany and then with Glenn and Glenda's arrival. I thought was pretty fun. Yeah, but it did seem a little bit meaningless for that to be such a short kind of driven storyline. Bringing up Devin Sawa though, I did love how, the idle hands reference. I thought that was perfect. And that's one of the things with this episode that I really felt we were getting a little more in line with Chucky, where a lot of the references and things with Chucky, flipping off the kids is when
Yeah,
they were kind of looking at the aftermath. I thought was hilarious. There were quite a few laugh out loud moments in this while still maintaining that horror. I did like that kill with Chucky and the nun. I thought that was
yes,
really
I was gonna say
interesting.
that was another high point for me, and just giving her the heart attack and leaving it at that was really excellent.
Yeah. And like where you're saying, there were some slow points, but I feel like where last week I was a little more it was more even, where this one is kind of really there were a few slow points, but I think the kind of actually moving toward and progressing things outweigh the slowness of the start of this episode.
Yeah, and I think that there is a part of me that is still a little spoiled coming off of just being able to watch season 1 in a complete succession. So,
Yep.
like, I was doing like 2 to 3 episodes an evening in that pace. So it's like I was getting a little bit of a larger section of the show. So it was just one of those things where I'm just like, man, I think that going episode by episode here, I do have to be a bit more forgiving.
Yeah. And boy, I have a storm outside. I don't know if you can hear that, but I thought it
No,
was
no, you're good.
okay, perfect. Anyway, getting back on track here, yeah, where it's like you kind of really have to sit with these because like I think I had the first of season 1, I had a couple of episodes to catch up on, and then I did get to sit with it in terms of the pacing there. So but by the time I kind of sat with it week to week, it was more so they were really getting heavy into the story. So it does seem like Chucky does. They do pace it out where it's like there's a few slow episodes and then we start really moving into the bulk of the storyline. And in this one, I really did feel like they were setting the pieces to play where we did get some introduction to some of the newer kids at the Catholic school. Forgive me, I'm forgetting their names since I just watched the episode. I haven't had time to really look them up. We got the redheaded girl who she's gonna work her way into that trio.
The group, yeah, she seems
Yeah.
like she's going to be a part of it for at least a little while.
And then we also have Lexi's bully, which that one's really intriguing me. I'm curious to see if we're
Yeah,
gonna see
that
a
was
Chucky team
an
up.
interesting dynamic how they kind of caught you off guard with that. You think it's going to go one way, but it's going to go the other. There is going to be a heel turn there. I'm telling you. I know it's going to happen at some point because like there's unless they're really trying to just like play with our expectations on that, which would be interesting. You can see it from a mile away that he's
Yeah.
going to be a douchebag at some
Yeah,
point.
and I'm intrigued by the actor that they have playing that character. I don't know him, but he looks like a jerk, and I'm curious to see kind of, with Junior in the first season, we kind of still had that. You connected with him a little bit just because you had known him throughout the season. Where this one, he just has that look of he seems like a jerk. So I'm curious to see uh, where they're going to take that whole storyline. I think that could be pretty interesting. Plus, with Lexi being the bully through the majority of season one, now we're kind of being introduced to her bully, which could be a pretty fun idea to play with. So I'm curious. Also, we're still playing with Lexi's drug habit here. So,
Yeah,
um,
interesting. I figured once we got to the cat, like that'd be the first episode, and then we kind of leave that.
yeah,
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm sure that'll bite her in the ass at some point, especially with Devon Sawa's character.
yes. So, and I'm still hoping Lexi bites the bullet at some point. So I am totally ready for Chucky to get her at some point in season two.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that she's on a redemption arc here for a while. But I did want to bring up one last thing before we wrap this up. A little interesting dynamic. It doesn't seem like it's going to last much longer, but it does set up something, with one of these characters was how the two nuns were opposing each other and kind of, working towards getting Devon Sawa's attention.
Yes.
Like they were kind of, at odds. And now the other one's been taken out, so the other one gets full reign, and she seems like a total bitch. So like I'm excited to see what they do with her character. She reminds me a lot of the character from Midnight Mass, in the sense
Yes.
of like she's gonna be a real toxic person. So
Yeah. And this is such a fun setting. It looked fun from the trailer for season one, and then
mhm.
even just the opening to this episode. I was just looking and I was like, man, this has so much potential to be a lot of fun throughout the rest of the season. I'm glad that we finally made it to where we had been wanting to be.
Mhm.
We didn't get there in episode one, but now we're here in episode two. And overall, just like looking at it, for Chucky kind of being its own redemption story in a sense, kind of finding its home now on TV. I was just like looking at the set pieces here, and I'm like, man, these look great in terms of like it doesn't look cheap. It looks like it's well done. Set design looks fun. So I'm really intrigued to see where they're going to go here. For me, I will say this episode has picked up a little bit more. We're really falling into place. We were getting that fun Chucky tone with the joking and him running around with the phone. I thought was a lot of fun as well. And again, a lot of laugh out loud moments in this episode.
Absolutely. But all right, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up for episode 2. I would say definitely a good episode. Like I said, a couple of opposing tensions and kind of sides to it where it's like if you're not invested in one side, it could seem a little slow. But I think that episode 3 for me seems like we're going to start hitting the ground running now that we kind of are getting into more of Chucky's plan, and now we understand the Nika dynamic even better. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, posing a lot of different interesting questions going forward. A lot of interesting characters. I'm curious to see where Glenda's gonna go here. I love that their introduction with the they them license plate and them getting out of the car and walking in on Jennifer Tilly. Jennifer Tilly always a shining star in here. I am very intrigued to see where this goes.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it too, because this is again character that I don't know much about at all because I didn't watch those movies yet.
Yeah,
So this will be my first introduction. But from what you say, they're pretty interesting and pretty fun. So
it'll be a lot
all
of fun.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to wrap us up here. As always, you can keep up with us on our social media at Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at SplattercastPod. We are in the midst of the Splatterthon, as we have been telling everybody. We are running a giveaway right now. There's a link in the description that lets you know exactly how to enter, what to do. We have 2 entries right now, so we need a few more. Get on that, guys. Definitely get in there. You get a free Splatterthon mug and a copy of the Black Phone on Blu-ray, which we will be drawing on Halloween during a live stream. So definitely tune in for all that goodness, as well as tomorrow is the day. If If you're watching this tonight, or if you're watching this in the morning, it is the day already. Halloween Ends. We are going to be checking it out at around 5 o'clock. So we will be having a review for you shortly after that. So definitely keep up with the channel on that. Lots of opinions are probably going to get thrown. I have heard some things. I know you're staying away from most of it. I told you some things about reactions. This is going to be interesting, man. I can tell you, if anything, what was said has only gotten me more excited. Just because I am so excited to see what they do with this movie.
I'm intrigued. I know we kind of did a couple little things earlier, a month or two ago, depending on it. It's all blur now, but definitely interesting story. I'm curious to see where they're going to go. We've had some bold swings in the horror community over the last few months that have really paid off. I'm curious to see if Halloween Ends is going to fall in line with that as well.
Absolutely. But alrighty, guys. Until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.